And so the recording starts now. So let me do an introduction here. So first from the Coveo team who's on the call. So for those of you who haven't talked before, my name is Henry de Jong. I'll be looking after the the Coveo Salesforce and the platform lines of business in Europe. And I have been working with Aviva. I've been working with Paul and Atkinson and others in the initial project when it was about the replacement of GSA where Coveo came in. And I have with me Paul Sheridan. Paul is our functional technical expert and is going to be doing the presentation later on Coveo overview. Eric Aubin is a functional consultant who lives also in the Netherlands. Will join us in about 20-30 minutes in light of looking eventually at the configurations Aviva currently made. I built a little slide just before I go into the introductions and to have an ask to you. So introductions, overview, case studies, Aviva specifics, and then we'll do a demonstration and go in a Q&A. And I encourage everyone to make it as interactive as possible. So please stop us or post a question in the chat box if you like. If I can do go around the table on your end and then combine introductions and Aviva specifics. Sneha, you were kind enough to share sort of some objective and goals for this call, but I would want to give everyone the opportunity to, while you introduce yourself and explain your role, also to share with us what you were hoping to see today. You know, is there any specific requirement or thing you want to hear us present so that we can cover that as well. So can I start with, well, let's start at the top of the list. Louis, would you want to see that Robin has just arrived as well, but Louis, you're at the top. Louis, maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us what you want to get out of this meeting.
Okay. I didn't have any preconceived notion of what I want to get out, but now that I'm being pushed for an answer, I shall respond to that. Sure. So I think my area of the business is looking after reviews and ratings, which we use a third-party platform to collect and display the review content. So that's an area of interest for me to see how Coveo can be used to search within the reviews and ratings to surface information to the end user. The other area which I'm responsible for is digital engagement platform, and that's powered by a solution called Nuance. So we use it to power a chatbot as well as our live chat technology. So I'm not sure there's any relevance between search and digital engagement. There may be, so if you have any, then you can please feel free to call that out. And there's another area which I'm responsible for, which is about finding a point of interest on our website. So in the case of, we have a feature in Poland called Find an Agent, which allows users to find the nearest agents to them, find out their reviews from other customers. So I think this product feature is built on AEM. So it's important for Coveo to be able to search within the agent profile and surface relevant information to the end user. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Katie, you're next in the attendee list.
So quite similar to Lewis, actually, I didn't have any kind of real agenda for this one, just to have kind of a look at what Coveo can do. So more of an intro for me, I guess. Okay.
And your role, Katie?
So I'm a change manager. I work on Poland and .co.uk from an AEM perspective.
Okay. All right, thank you. Paul, you're next. We've made your introduction already. Robin, I saw you just joined a minute ago.
Hi there, yes, sorry, we were all trooping in from a company stand-up. Yeah, so I'm the product owner for .com, so we've implemented your solution on that site and we're improving it as we go. From my perspective, it's the options, product options, the way you do search, the ranking specifically, and that algorithm and how we can fine-tune that that's what I'm interested in.
Okay. All right. And here's the Next person on it, it's Simon. You there? Can you hear us?
I think it was me. Yeah, so very similar to Robin, really, focusing on .co.uk. So yeah, the only thing to add to that is some of the out-of-the-box features that you guys have that perhaps through the case studies can be brought to life a little bit. That would be good. And also just perhaps a demonstration of the analytics suite and how we can utilize that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about it from me. Thank you.
Okay. And then I think Snea, you're the last person on the call now. She sent me an email. Sorry, I see Stuart Kegel. So sorry. Snea, you first. Anything in addition to what you shared with us already?
No, I think that is pretty much it, and these guys have covered on the add-ons as well. So I think as long as we cover those points, that'll be brilliant.
All right. And then Stuart, last, your role and what you want to get out of the...
Hi guys. Yes, I'm a product manager as well. So with everyone else here, we're all on the same floor. Actually, it's quite funny. The way we work, we just look at. I work is I look after countries. I look after Poland and France specifically at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think we've covered all the topics that we want to discuss.
Okay, good. All right. So thanks everyone for sharing, your background and also what you hope to get out of this. So we'll do our best to cover that in the time we have today. Before we dive into the product, then I'll give Paul the floor. Just a thought, probably because not all of you have been involved into the discussions and presentations previously when we started the project back in October-ish last year. So I put a few slides together which I think conceptually give you a good idea about what Coveo can deliver. It may not be relevant for the scope or the discussion today, but it may give ideas broader inside the organization, because we know obviously Aviva is a large organization and has multiple platforms, and Coveo is strongest sort of a value proposition is not only geared towards how can we make websites better, but how can we also make people internally in the organization better. And for that, I thought it'd be useful to show a few things with you as well as some case studies. So I think this doesn't need to a lot of explanation. I'm not going to read that out, but relevance is really what we do, and providing relevance, and that's an expectation. Whether you're a consumer or you're business buyers, and no matter whether you're an insurance company or you're a manufacturer, choice is a commodity. Relevance is really an expectation, and I think we all can. Let me just put this away. Can understand that if your relevance is poor, it has or can have significant impact within your organization. If your relevance is rich, as we call it, then there's a variety of benefits who come from that. It's better customer experience. It is shorter resolution times for problems, cases, projects, etc. It is when you want to provide customer self-service, it is more important because it drives up customer satisfaction. So poor relevance versus rich relevance, sort of is something where we really wanted to focus our attention up, and I think that stems with some of the points you brought up is how can we do ranking better? How can we use the analytics, right, to see what is important, what's not important? Do we have a content gap, etc., etc.? And we'll share that with you in a moment. We started with Aviva the journey on replacing GSAs on the web portal, but we do have sort of a larger engagement with our customers, whether it's external faces on the website, or it's in customer self-service, or it is with partners, partner portals, as well as internally with knowledge workers, employees, intranets, agents, etc. And therefore, our key concept is in terms of driving relevance is to look at where's the content, and in what different repositories is that stored. Is there any security level applied to that we need to take into consideration? What is the context? So in the context in terms of what digital interactions are taking place, what is the target group, what the type of people are looking for particular information, and what is their behavior. And combining that supported with machine learning capabilities, as Coveo has them, and which we'll see a little later, that really drives relevance. And that's what Coveo makes unique and a market leader, into our domain. I'll go a little fast on this one. I mean, I think it's fair to say we have a large number of customers who've given us that sort of best practices, as well as learned to how do we deploy best our solution, and can use that to the benefit of the next customer who joins us, and that creates things like communities. We have an annual user conference where you will be invited to participate into, where you can share with other companies your experiences as well as learn from their experiences. And we work with a large group of system integrators, and we're a good, solid, growing organization. So when you look at what we offer, it goes beyond only facilitating websites. It's either external facing with personalized websites, customer communities, customer self-service, partner dealer portals, up to e-commerce, and internal facing, creating a more intelligent workplace, whether it's using a CRM system with contact centers, or a help desk, or an employee portal, or an intranet. And it's all on the same platform. That's the beauty of the Coveo solution. What you currently have is a foundation, can be used to expand. And give you an example. If you say, well, we want to start looking at how we can use it internally, well, that's certainly an opportunity. We want to see how we can index other repositories which also contain valuable information we want to expose to our customers. That's an option as well, because we have that connectivity capability, including security. What we see a lot with our customers is, obviously, search engines are not new, but it's just that, where are you on the journey of, becoming mature in relevancy? What techniques are you applying today, and where will you want to go, and how can we support that using technology? And I think we captured that already in previous emails, and also came up on the call today, is that current use of Coveo to a certain extent is limited. We'll hope to feed you with some ideas and capabilities how you can improve on that. That's why I asked Eric, from an implementation point of view, to also be on the call, but also to see how can we bring you to the next level. And that's how we would like to work with our customers. And many of them started with simple, straightforward search. Obviously, the ideal world is to get to self-learning predictive recommendations, number 6 at the top of the ladder here. And our way of working with clients is to say, okay, where are you today? How can we gradually take next steps, and where do you want to be in the future? And for that, we have created the relevance maturity model. Now, before I dive into some customer case studies, analysts are recognizing Coveo's impact. As you can see, this is the latest Gartner report from 2017. The next one for 2018 is not out yet, but we hope to see that one hopefully the middle of this year. Coveo is well positioned, and that's a testimonial to the work we've been doing with our customers, and also our investment into a scalable and robust technology. And it's obviously something we would gladly share with our customers. What's important here is it doesn't speak about search, it does speak about insight. And I think Gartner, Gartner has redefined actually the domain by saying, well, search, that's too limited. It's much more insight engines, because there's a lot more to it. There's machine learning, there's analytics, there's, you need to be having the capability to proactively and interactively deliver the right information in the context of what your customers are asking, or your own employees are asking. And that kind of created also a reshuffling of the vendors, on the Magic Quadrant. And Coveo was already in the old paradigm search enterprise solutions at the top, and we're still in at the top, and we even moved a little bit further up. So that's that's obviously good for us, and that's also good for our customers to know you work with a market leader. So here's a case. Sorry, go ahead. What was the question?
Hi, Henry. I'm not sure whether you're going to cover this. I thought I mentioned it now. So at the start of the meeting, there's a line that says relevance is an expectation.
Yeah.
Now, going back to the maturity model, which you were shown 2 slides ago, from here, is there any way to accelerate from, I guess, siloed search, and skip a few steps for Aviva?
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure whether you're going to cover it in the later slides, but if you can answer that at some point, that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for that. I think we can definitely do that and share that as how that practically works within our solution. So Paul, I mean, if we can take a note of that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Show you what tactics we can use. But thanks for making that comment. We'll come back to that. So American Express is an example here. It's a different environment. They're using a variety of different repositories like Salesforce apps and Salesforce Chatter. Pinium e-learning. They have multiple Salesforce orgs. To my knowledge, Aviva is also a large Salesforce user or customer. I don't know if any of this team has any connection with the team who's been owning Salesforce, but that could be of interest because obviously depending on how you use it, if you use it externally or you only use it internally or a combination. We have a deep connection into Salesforce, connectivity and a number of large Salesforce customers also using our technology, which American Express is one of them. They really wanted to have a one-stop shop community for their sales reps, delivering sales enablements and 6,000 global sales reps in a B2B environment. It's fairly new. I don't have results as of yet because we started to, there was a new client as of last year and we started implementation, and so they're not fully up and running. But it's an interesting case because it provides a different perspective on how Coveo can be used in a larger organization, and that's what we typically see in larger organization. There are multiple domains where there's different use of a technology, and again, coming back to what I said earlier, Coveo can be used in a variety of ways, both internal and external facing, and still using the same platform. Here's an example which you haven't done yet, but it's an example how you can enrich your very own website is using facets, with, authors and concepts. Obviously, we need to make it tied to your, data, metadata, and your business model. But it's one example where you can clearly make the customer experience better. Achmea is the largest Dutch insurance company, which is more in your vertical. That's where they used in conjunction with Sidecar, which is a content management system, to create personalized websites. And Achmea has in the range of about 18 to 20 different labels under their own brand name underneath of under the corporate name. They have about 300 websites on SharePoint, and their goal was really to provide better self-service capabilities with facets, with the ability to search through SharePoint, as well as Sidecar, which is their new CMS system, and present that all in one fashion towards the end customer using XDB, which is a personalization database which contain profiles of customers, which Coveo can pick up and combine that with data residing into sort of the different repositories to make it a more personalized experience, and that also is strongly supported by search analytics. Visa is, obviously a well-known brand name, slightly different case here as well. Again, Salesforce, Adobe Experience Manager, Microsoft SharePoint, Saba, YouTube videos, and a variety of different websites, just to create a more, a better experience for onboarding new merchants, basically. well on their way and starting to see the benefits of integrating it into their entire environment. And lastly, this is SolarWinds, which is it's more in the manufacturing high-tech environment. They're using it both internal and externally. So they use it for their community, for their portal, for self-service to drive case deflection, but also for their agents on their help desk to be more proficient and productive in resolving cases faster and providing quickly information coming from a variety of different repositories. And so here's a situation where you see self-service and assisted service go hand in hand and strengthening each other. The more self-services you drive, obviously, the more time the agents internally have to focus on more complex cases or projects or whatever is their day-to-day job. So these are a couple of examples of implementations, and I'm giving you a snapshot of logos from our installed base, particularly on the second bar on the financial services, a variety of different names in the banking and an insurance company. And Paul's going to share one or two examples, live examples also in a moment. I thought to kick it off here to give you kind of like that high-level overview of what Coveo can do or where we operate, and so that hopefully that builds a little bit of a better understanding. And while I'll change presenter right to Paul, any questions on this particularly, or are we ready to move into the demonstration? I take that as a no.
I think we're ready for the demo.
Okay.
I think we're ready for the demo.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right, Paul, the floor is yours.
Oh, great, thank you very much. By the way, very nice to meet you all today. We haven't spoken in the past, and so I'm looking forward to conversation and also to show you some examples both from existing customer websites and a little demo I put together as well. Some of the ideas that we think can help you with increased relevance and engagement on your site. And I actually I pulled one up here that's a customer of ours who's a healthcare provider in the United States. And I wanted to bring this up because you had asked a little bit about sort of geo-localized search, and Bon Secours Health does really quite a good job of that in a couple of ways, taking advantage of Coveo, but also of the content that they're publishing, of course. So on their Find a Doctor page here, or Find a Healthcare Provider page, they're actually detecting my location. This is my Canadian postal code, if those letters and numbers are unfamiliar looking to you. So based on my IP address, their content management system actually figures out where I'm located, translates that into a postal code or a zip code if they are actually in the United States. And we can then use that information to sort my results, or for that matter, filter my results by distance, find the closest doctor to me. And of course, that can also be tied together with search. I'm looking for perhaps a heart specialist. And you can see as I start to type in a query, we're actually getting query suggestions automatically being generated by Coveo. Now, these suggestions, as we'll see from a couple of examples, they can come from a couple of different places. In the case of Bon Secours, this is actually coming from effectively keywords, tags that they're putting into their pages that they publish. So we're using that metadata as a means of doing query suggestion. We can also, and I'll show you on a couple of examples, we can also use our machine learning capabilities, which are really based on analysis of user behavior. What have people searched for? Did they get results? Did they get the results? Did they get results that cause them to click on something? In order to be able to promote really good query suggestions, these are searches similar to what you're typing in that worked well for other people. So they're very good quality suggestions. I'll show you a couple of live examples of those too. But in Bon Secours' case, they've just said, oh no, we just want to use the metadata that we have. We don't need to build a dictionary specifically for query suggestion, but it does really help, as you can see, with I think the user experience. People expect to have some kind of type ahead functionality. And again, that ability to sort your results in a variety of ways. Henry mentioned, and I think it's very true, that relevance is very central, but relevance is different in different circumstances. The relevance of finding a doctor, or as you were saying in your case, an agent, you might want to find the closest one to you. You might want to find the one who's got the best rating, as you'd mentioned. In the case of doctors, actually I was talking to the Bon Secours people, they said it's really inappropriate for them to sort by customer ratings, but that's different by industry, as you can imagine. The other
So,
thing I think they do.
Paul, can you point out in your demo which part is served by Coveo? That would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and thank you for the question. So this is a series of components on this page that are Coveo components, much like what you use on your site. Facets or filters over here on the left-hand side, the search box, of course, and the type ahead functionality. These sorting options, these are all Coveo components that exist within this page that is being built in their content management system. The result itself, this is all coming back from Coveo, but being formatted by the content management application that we're running within here. The content itself, this is all coming from, in this case, a Sitecore content management system, but we're indexing it, so we're making it all searchable. Yeah, so really this page is primarily Coveo components. The part that isn't, well, the part that isn't Coveo, I guess, is the detection of IP address and translation to a postal code, but that can actually be done just calling a web service API. It's important also that the content here, the doctors and their locations, that needs to be indexed by Coveo, and typically it's a latitude-longitude combination that comes from the backend database that we're indexing, and that's what allows us to do that sort by distance, or sort by distance or filter by distance. Does that help?
Yeah, that really helps. Thank you.
And Paul, a further question from me, if I may. Do most of your customers construct their search using your components, or do they have their own look and feel and then just call APIs or whatever?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I would say most use our components because it's quicker and easier to build a search interface. You can certainly restyle them. We do provide you with the CSS style sheets so that you could change the look and feel substantially, and you'll see that a bit on a couple of other examples. The downside, I would say, of going through the API is you can do everything that you can do with these components, these JavaScript components, but it's going to take you longer.
Okay.
I do see some cases. There are some cases, and I could show you one where there's a really substantially different look and feel to search. So bear with me for just a second while I go through my extremely long list of bookmarks here. A company called Enbridge, an oil company here in Canada, uses Coveo as part of their application. They have a really different look and feel to, for example, the result list. As you can see, it's a tiled result list here rather than a text-oriented result list. They don't have filters or facets, those sorts of things. So they're using our API rather than our standard components. And it was a decision they made from an overall user experience point of view, of course.
Great, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, okay. You're welcome. The other thing I wanted to highlight on Bon Secours' site was I think they've done a really good job of user experience, again, deciding what sorts of filters or facets are useful to a user. So I'm looking for a doctor. What's important to me? Well, the specialty, presumably, if I understand the language being used in these specialties. The United States is perhaps a special case when they're dealing with all kinds of interesting insurance challenges, but certainly what type of person is it? Am I looking for a doctor, an assistant? Are they part of this Bon Secours network? What languages do they speak? Certainly important. And in some cases, of course, the gender of the doctor. So they've done a great job here of figuring out what's important to an end user. One other aspect to this, too, is that from Coveo's usage analytics capabilities, we log what people search for, but also what they click on, not just what doctors they select or get directions to, but also these filters and facets, so that on an ongoing basis, when you're looking at continual improvement of your site, you can understand, well, which of these filters is not being used at all. Maybe we can save some screen space by removing it because nobody's ever clicking on the language filter, for example. And I'll show you a bit of what the usage analytics, of course, looks like later on. But I did want to highlight this just because you've mentioned the agent search use case in particular for your Poland site.
We have a number of different POIs that can be searched for, like hospitals,
Oh, certainly.
car workshops and whatnot. So it's very similar use case.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, to be honest, it becomes interesting when you think about, once again, that keyword of relevance. When you're looking through a catalog, if you will, of people or locations. Relevance traditionally from a text search point of view, it's based on a number of things, and we can help you tune relevance. But it's, at its core based on, do the words you're looking for, or perhaps their synonyms, do they exist in the catalog? And how many times do they exist, and what fields do they exist in if there's good metadata fields there. But when you're looking through a catalog, maybe the number of times the word, I was searching for heart, for example, the number of times that occurs isn't really that relevant. But what is relevant to me is more things like these filters, or perhaps distance, as opposed to traditional relevance, and rating in your case as well. So those sort, we can filter or facet or sort really on any of these metadata fields. And metadata is a really key concept when you're talking about catalog type searching. I'm going to sort of change gears a little bit. We've looked at this catalog example. Certainly document search is obviously really important. And I'm going to show you here on Adobe's website. They use Coveo to search really their documentation and community and conversation support information as well. So Coveo's used here to index AEM content and also a variety of other sources as well. But what's interesting on their side, among other things, is that they are using for these query suggestion or type ahead, they are using what I described as Coveo's machine learning driven query suggestion. Again, this is looking at what have people searched for and had success with. So even though I've misspelled the word Photoshop here intentionally, I'm still getting good suggestions because other people have searched for something very close to what I was typing in and had success. So really driven by the successes of users on this site, I can get some really good quality query suggestions here. More than just an individual word, as you can see, this how to draw a straight line in Photoshop. That's an interesting one. And you can see here that that kind of query is returning me some really good results around that. They've also set up a top result for particular queries. So really the landing page for Photoshop. So you can define, much as you could in GSA, of course, key matches or best bets if a query contains a particular word. So there's, to my mind, kind of two approaches to relevance. You can define rules to say my best bets are such and such, or I want to boost the rank of certain kinds of documents, whether it's conversations or documentation or based on specific metadata fields again. You can also then leverage Coveo's machine learning capabilities to start to automatically promote the content that more people have done similar queries for and have gone and looked at or have purchased, perhaps if it's more of a commerce kind of site. So that, once again, is machine learning applied to usage analytics, this time with the goal of boosting the most quote-unquote relevant documents based on user behavior. So there are use cases where that really makes sense, and customer support is really a good one for that in our experience with these sorts of customers. Product catalogs, if you're trying to sell somebody something, it may be useful, but it may be that you want more control to say, I want to boost what's on sale, or I want to allow the user more more capability in their own hands to really filter results or to tune in on what they're really looking for. But we offer both capabilities, and they work very much hand in hand. Adobe is also using, again, this filtering or faceting by in their case, product. So we're pulling metadata information out of their content as they publish it, and allowing the user then to say, well, I'm really looking for InDesign information, even though I've perhaps done a search for Photoshop product prep, how to draw a straight line in InDesign. Now that looks nicer. And you can see the different kinds of content being, I think this is an important thing to keep in mind too, having had a bit of a look at your site. For different kinds of content, it makes sense to display the results a bit differently. This is a community conversation here on Adobe Forums. And we don't just want to show the title and a little snippet and the date. We also want to show, has this question been answered? How many replies have there been? Maybe a little bit of an icon here to say, oh, this is a conversation. Maybe that's what I'm interested in. And in many cases, our customers would also have multiple they have sort of tabs over here. I can say I want to drill into just community conversations or just support. And you have a sort of similar thing on your site right now, but it's really just everything versus documents, if I recall. So selecting appropriate.
How does that work, Paul? Because that sort of answering the question for you within the search results returned is really cool, and I think it's something we want to explore. So is that like structured data within your pages that provides the extra level of information there, or how does that work?
Yeah, okay, just to position this clearly, like we're Coveo itself, we're not really answering the question. This is a conversation that's happened on the Adobe community site. So we could, for example, boost the relevance of results that have this flag set saying this question's been answered. So let's give that a boost. We want to return that ahead of questions that have not been answered, perhaps. And to be honest, I'm not sure if Adobe is doing this. I'm just putting out a possibility there. So once again, relying on metadata around this content, which is created outside of Coveo but indexed by Coveo, we can understand a fair bit about the structure of that information, so that we can both display, hey, this question's been answered, and again, we could possibly say let's boost answered results above non-answered results. Of course, assuming that they correspond to the sort of terms the user is looking for, of course. Does that make context to your question?
Well,
yes, it does. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Paul, I had a question. In the initially it's shown example where you have misspelled the word. How's it managed? Is it basically, what's the process if somebody's misspelled something for the first time, and that behavior we see all the time? How does this list pops up? What's the logic behind it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, of course. It's not so much driven by whether this is the first time I've misspelled this word. It's whether somebody has searched for something that's close to what I'm typing in and had success in the past. So, I mean, even if I say, actually in this case, it's not giving me that. So I just Photoshop. Yeah. We can also automatically correct if there are no results. Adobe site is a little strange in that they're not just using query suggestion, they're also using what we would call search as you type, in that even though I haven't hit the search button, it's actually going and doing the search. So if you'll pardon me, I'm going to show the same sort of thing on a different site where they don't do that because it's a bit confusing. Dell is a nice example. Again, a very large customer in the technology space using us for really product support. And if I start, I know that I have, say, printer drivers, for example, so I could put in printer driver. So again, the query suggestion is not so much based on whether anyone has done the same misspelling as me. It's that other people have searched for things correctly. Now, I think the logical question that's probably in your mind right now out of that is, well, what if nobody has ever searched for printer driver before?
Yeah.
So in that kind of context, I would say that the other approach to query suggestion, really based on metadata fields, what's in your index, like what Bon Secours does. So the fact I search for heart, well, Heart Scan and Heart Health Academy are tags that exist in their documents. That's a great starting point. It doesn't address the sort of misspelling situation. That's really dependent on the machine learning applied to users' queries. The other thing that you can do, and many of our customers do, is really load up the machine learning engine with queries, successful queries. So we have a little robot tool that our professional services team uses sometimes to generate a bunch of queries and clicks, really to preload the machine learning capability. Now, you're sort of guessing, well, and it's probably an intelligent guess, on what people are actually going to search for on your site. But that's a nice way to get started.
Okay. And the other question would be, if this functionality you would have implemented at various of your clients, when they start what you call implementing the IA tool with their search functionality, what's the initial investment with regards to time? How long does this take to implement it?
Well, that's one of those questions that's a little bit like how long is a piece of string to a certain extent, of course. It does vary. The implementation, and Eric, I noticed you joined as well, so I'm sure you have some words of wisdom here. But in implementing we try to make it as simple as possible to manage that machine learning in particular. We really don't want you to have to be a data scientist in order to take advantage of this. And I'm switching over into our administration tool here right now, and this is just an example of an analytics dashboard, which I'll come back to in a second. But from the point of view of machine learning, it's defined in a query pipeline, and the query pipeline is really just our business rules for search. So this is where you would define things like synonyms, like those featured results we were looking at, and we'll come back to this in a little more detail, but ranking expressions to manually define rules to boost certain kinds of content, for example. But from a machine learning point of view, we let you define one or more models. But the model, in terms of how many knobs to twist or buttons to push, we try to keep this simple. So it's, again, the data set that we're learning from is that usage analytics data. What do people search for? What do they click on? Do they click on anything? We let you have a bit of control over how much data we're going to use, and you might include or exclude certain kinds of events, searches or clicks, or you might want to have a different model for different parts of your website, your UK site versus your Poland site, for example. But really, there's not a lot that we require that you manage here. So getting started with it, I would say, is relatively quick. We find and we document that there's really a few thousand queries and clicks that are required to start producing some good results. And again, you could sort of preload those using sort of a query bot, if you will. And of course, we can provide you with some ideas around best practices there. I don't know, Eric, if you have any other thoughts or wisdom to add in this area.
Well, it's really well explained, and I'm not a data scientist as well, and it's very easy to understand. You know your field, you know what you're looking for. So really, it's if you go with that, we could think that machine learning is complex, but we made the UI to be very, very simple. So after a short demo like my colleague did, you can pretty much start using it at the basic level, but it's really simple, honestly.
Okay, brilliant. That's great.
Can I add to the question around machine learning?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Since you have so many clients in possibly common markets as ours, we able to leverage kind of the aggregated learning from different markets, industries, so that we can rank the relevance of the results on our website for day one? Because we're not going to have any machine learning from day one, right?
Sure.
So
it's a really good question, but actually we can't. Everyone's analytics data, everyone's indexes are separate. They are in the cloud, of course, but they're very, very separate, and they're kind of sensitive. We don't want to be sharing between one customer and another that sort of information. We, to a certain extent, probably could share some best practices, experiences that perhaps our professional services team has had. But by default, we don't actually even get access to each organization. So I have access to a number of Coveo organizations here, mostly from a demo point of view. But our team, unless our customers explicitly grant us access, we don't have access to their environments.
Yeah, this is I mean, it's a very valid and good question, but it's obviously security, right? I mean, our customers wouldn't be happy if we would start to share that, what else, unless they give us permission. But in general, it's the contrary. So you must rely on us that your data is safe and sound, and we're not sharing it with anybody else. So, but the perspective. The perspective of what you're saying would obviously be great, right, if you could leverage that. But, like Paul said, best practices in terms of how you can configure and lessons learned. But, that's only how far we can go.
Yeah, I think like synonyms, for example, is not something quite sensitive. Potentially within a market, there will be common synonyms that are used.
True.
So anyway, I have another... Yeah, so I have
I had one other point related to that, perhaps. Henry had mentioned our annual user conference, Impact Conference. And that might be an interesting environment in which to get together with other Coveo customers to ask these sort of questions about sharing best practices. Or alternatively, we do also have a discussion board on our website, answers.coveo.com, which many of our customers, as well as our own employees, of course, participate in. So there's a couple of interesting areas that you might consider. But please go ahead.
Yeah, my second question was around intent rather than using search query terms, which it's quite one-dimensional. So does your machine learning understand intent?
I would carefully, guardedly say yes, and maybe share an example with you of to kind of illustrate that. One more of our customers' websites here at Logitech, and I picked them because I know of a couple of interesting examples here on their site. I've got a little script that's running in my browser that lets me either enable or disable the machine learning component of search. It is enabled, of course, by default on their site, but it lets me do a more dramatic demo. So if I disable that and look, for example, at their product catalog, we heard of an interesting case where a user was searching for, or a number of users were searching for this string here, CUAY59, and there's nothing in the product database. So with machine learning disabled, generic search, this string is not mentioned in the product database at all. It turns out after some research that string is actually a serial number on a dongle for a wireless keyboard. Now, they don't keep the serial numbers in their product catalog, but because our machine learning engine has learned from the user's search, and then not just they got no results, but they refined their search. They probably went and looked at the box that the product came in and figured out the actual name of the product and searched for that and found what they're looking for and clicked on it and so on. Because of that, with machine learning enabled, we're actually able to return results that people have gotten to when they began their search journey with this, but made some changes, not too many changes to the search, and eventually found what they were looking for, and they found these products. So even though that string doesn't exist in this record, we're making a linkage between that query and this record and presenting this as a good result. So in a sense, I would say we're trying to derive intent based on what other people have done in the past. Does that example kind of make sense to you in the context of your question about intent?
Yes, sorry.
Not a problem, not a problem. So that's an example, I guess. And we've seen some others as well. I mean, our marketing team has certainly, and I don't mean to downplay our marketing team, but that, we've said in some marketing brochures, I suppose, that we're figuring out intent. And being a technical guy, I tend to be a little more cautious about saying that. But it's an example where really we are figuring, finding what it is you're looking for without using just the keywords.
Okay, and I'm not familiar with Coveo, but do you guys support multiple languages?
Oh yes,
well?
We fully support about 40 different languages and many character sets as well. And by fully support, and we'd be happy to send you the appropriate documentation pages that describe this.
Okay.
But by fully sorry, go ahead.
Markets are basically Poland, France,
Yep.
Poland, France, which have where we would need a link, what you call index in a different language. Otherwise, dominantly it's English. So that's where we wanted to check whether you have multilingual functionalities or not.
Yeah, we do have Lithuania as well, which typically might be a bit of a problem. But yeah, I think you are well covered.
We can, I would have to check on Lithuanian, but there's different levels to language support, right? There's the ability to actually index and, sorry, go ahead.
I think for now it's not a problem because that's not a priority market for us just yet. So as long as Poland and France is covered, that's brilliant.
Yeah, okay. I'd be happy to share with you the deeper documentation on language support. I did just want to check, it's about 23 minutes after. Do we have a hard stop at the bottom of the hour? Can we go on a little longer? Because obviously there's many things we could discuss here as well.
I'm okay with time. Is anyone present? No, I think everybody is fine to stay longer.
Henry, Eric, are you guys okay too?
I'm okay. Sorry, I was just checking on Polish and Lithuanian. We're all covering that, and France as well. So
thank you. Thanks, Henry. Appreciate it.
And Paul, for me, I have a hard stop in 7 minutes, unfortunately.
Okay. Is there anything specific that you wanted to bring up, Eric?
Basically, we still have a SAO in place, so of course I'm always available to help you out with your implementation to see where we could enhance some feature and help you, because of course it's really nice, all of this. It's really well explained, but when you get all this information, you don't really necessarily where to go, where to start.
Yeah.
And I'm the person that can help you leverage that, of course.
So, Eric, a quick question. I'm sorry, I'm not aware. Whom do you manage the relationship with within Aviva, so that we can just understand, if you want to get in touch with you, who's the best person to speak to? Because I understand you speak with Paul Atkinson. Is that correct, or is there someone else that you speak with?
The other, what was his name?
There are two persons. It's Steve. His name escapes me. His last Steve, but that's more on the sort of the overall relationship. And then Paul Atkinson, and there is the it starts with an M. Starts with an M.
Okay. Matlock.
Matlock. No, sorry.
Okay. It's fine, and because I think I just wanted to understand from them what the commercials and contractuals are in place, and when can we use what's the agreement with regards to using your services. So I think that is a note. As long as you said Paul knows, I can ask him who's the person who looks at the contractual, so that we know what's the best way to engage with you guys.
The contractors are Steve Amos, and then it's with Paul Atkinson and Cameron Kahn. Those are the...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be brilliant, because both of them are tech guys, so probably you don't have a business contact within. So I'll just see
that was Sarah.
Who should be in. Okay, that's with Sarah. Okay, Sarah Dorrington.
Yeah, Sarah Dorrington.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, cool. I think
if I may, I wanted just to take the conversation back to the machine learning. Are there any gotchas in terms of switching this on and beginning to learn? Is it something that you would trial and on a small scale, or is it, as you say, you've got nothing to lose, let's start the learning?
That's an excellent question. In my experience, I think I would switch it on from the point of view of starting to learn immediately. However, I would not have it have an impact on relevance right away. So there's this one additional tuning option that you have here with regard to the automatic relevance tuning. Typically when you're getting started, and we do document this as a best practice, when you're just starting to learn, I would have little or no impact on relevance based on machine learning until you get a relatively significant number of searches and clicks. And we do document, again, best practices around this. Because if you've only got 4 or 5 people who've searched so far and they've clicked on documents and such, we're not getting a good aggregate amount of information to base this on. So what we often suggest is, going back to the concept here of query pipelines, these again are the rules for tuning search, is that you create more than one, as you can see. So you might have a default pipeline where machine learning is, we're learning, perhaps we're ingesting information, but we're not actually affecting the results yet. Create another where you are in fact starting to learn and boost based on user behavior, and do some testing across them. So you can send, say, 10% of your users to the tuned pipeline and 90% to the non-tuned pipeline, and run reports to compare things like click-through percentage and average click rank and so on across those two pipelines.
That's very nice. How can you see over time what the suggestions? So at the beginning, it would probably get things wrong or just generic, and then can you see them tuning themselves over time, so you know the moment it's ready to go into production?
You can. Actually, this is a new report feature that just came out this week here, where you can see what the candidate examples are for this particular model. There is another way in which you can do these same kind of reports as well, a little more visually. This one's not bad. It just gives you a little more detailed information about why are these suggestions, and that they're how many search events and click events have led to these suggestions. And my apologies, this little example demo site I've got, I do a lot of searches on, but very few clicks, so the suggestions are probably terrible. But I've got an example here somewhere of a, no, maybe it's in a different, oh, I think I put it into here. My apologies. You could have in your summary dashboard here, I'm sorry, I've misplaced where I put this. You can have a report in here which says, well, these are the suggestions that are actually being made. So that the other report I showed you is more about candidate suggestions. These are suggestions that we will be making. You can also have a report in here to talk about what are the suggestions we are actively making.
Excellent. And is there a performance hit by switching this on and not displaying anything to the user?
Interestingly, no. The machine, especially for, well, both with regard to query suggestions and with regard to actual search relevance tuning based on machine learning, we're not actually hitting the index at all. The search index is traditional search. We're looking for keywords and returning you either suggestions or results. Machine learning, we actually go and hit the output of a machine learning model before we actually hit the index. So, well, I say there's no performance impact. There's no impact on the search performance. It's a different parallel suggestion, if you will.
Okay, and the machine learning sounds like it runs that first and then goes off and does the query?
That's correct. So that we do get results both that are suggested by machine learning and that are coming out of the index.
Okay, okay. That's all I have for now. I'm very interested. I think we should switch that on and start, learning ourselves, let alone machine learning.
I think so, yeah. And I mean, the generic usage analytics dashboards like this are extremely useful, both from the point of view of finding out what are the top queries from people in different locations, perhaps. If you have multiple tabs or multiple pages, understanding what's popular there, and what documents are people clicking on after they do a particular query. The other kinds of, and this is a pretty typical dashboard that our customers would use, the top queries that don't have results or that don't lead to clicks, and then more aggregate information like click-through percentage and average click rank. To me, this information feeds into that continuous improvement. And perhaps back to the question at the very beginning about accelerating that maturity model. To me, yes, it's possible to jump ahead several steps, or you can do it step by step and use the information that effectively your users are telling you through search and through click and through faceting. What's working, what's not working, what do we need to improve? Do I need to create some synonyms because people are using terminology that we don't use on our site, perhaps? Do I need to define some top results for particular common searches where we know the right answer, where they want to go? Those sorts of things.
Very good. Thank you so much. I do have a hard stop at this time, but thank you so much. It's been very educational. I think from my perspective on .com anyway, it is the case of let's start switching these things on and sprint by sprint almost start improving search. So this has been really educational. I think also we need access to our own dashboard and get some accounts in this team, because then we can start clicking around, because there's a world of information here that we're not privy to at the moment. But yes, thank you very much. It's been very good.
Thanks for your time, Robin. Just on your last point, I mean, what you just said, you have access to it. It's just a matter of it need to be sort of configured the right way. That's why I had Eric on the call, because like I said to Sneha, there is a statement of work in place you can leverage already to start working with Eric and whoever needs to be involved in your end to configure this.
Super. Yes, we will do that for sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Bye. Hi, this is Louis again. Still on the topic of machine learning.
Yeah, sure.
So because I'm heavily involved with AI to program our chatbot. So I'm just wondering.
Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to come back to that.
I'm just wondering if your technology allows us to train the machine learning so the responses are much more relevant. So other than user ranking results, are we as the administrator of the tool able to train the AI?
Yes, but basically by feeding queries and click events. So I had mentioned that our professional services team has developed a very simple, I guess, robot, effectively, that simulates unique queries and clicks and so on. So you could use that or a tool like that. It's actually an open source tool available on GitHub to train your instance of Coveo. Say, here's 5,000 queries and 500 click events that result from them, and use that to start to train the tool. At this point, we don't have any other way for you to train our models. I know that our development team is looking into other ways in which you could take input from other sources to start to pre-build the model. But really the intention, of course, of this capability is to learn from real user behavior as opposed to effectively rules-driven relevance training, because we do have those capabilities to do things on more of a rules basis back in that query pipeline, like more manually. These concepts of ranking expressions to tune relevance based on, for example, metadata or conditions like where is the user located. That's a great way, and I think very complementary to machine learning. So yeah, training the machine learning engine, it really is meant to learn from real behavior and to adjust based on how users' behavior changes. With regard to chatbots and such, we've actually been doing, we're very interested in that area, as you can imagine. We deal with a lot of customer self-service use cases. So our development teams have been looking into how can we integrate with, there are many different chatbot producers out there. And there typically is a couple stages to a chatbot interaction. One is, the first stage is typically kind of rules-based, Hi, how are you? I see you're asking a question about insurance. Are you asking about life insurance or health insurance? And those sort of things tend to be rules-driven. And I would say, although I may be wrong, outside of the scope of search per se, it's more like let's program in some rules to ask those initial questions, filter down what the use case is, and then go and do a search for stuff. So we've built a couple of sort of demo environments. I don't have access to one right now, where we integrate with a third-party chatbot tool to do that search that happens after the initial clarification of the question or the scope of the question. And where I think we're really important there is in a chatbot world, as I'm sure you're aware, people tend to ask longer questions. They don't just type in one or two keywords. They say, how can I find out about what the requirements are for life insurance in the UK? Where we come into play there from a search point of view is, in addition, this is still already driven by machine learning, we can figure out what are the most effective words that people have used in their queries before. And even though your query is a really long one, we can say, well, hey, the most important words in that are life, insurance, and UK. So we'll increase the weight of those words in the search. It's something that we call intelligent term detection within our documentation and such. So it's a way of dealing with these longer queries that are going to be the case in the chatbot world or in the voice-activated search world. Does that all kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area to us too, and our R&D team and product management are really actively looking into what exactly should we be doing there above and beyond what we can do today to really productize that aspect a little more. Whether we work with one particular chatbot vendor or really provide more out-of-the-box tools to plug into a variety of them, I don't know the answer to at this point. I did actually want to show you guys one last thing. I'd taken the liberty or the initiative perhaps to crawl your website.
That is brilliant.
So I built I wanted to compare how search works on your site today and how you could make it work. And this didn't take me very long, actually. So
this is something you were looking for. So.
Very good.
Yeah, we could do one for Poland too, maybe France. Yeah.
That explains the spike in traffic.
Sorry about that. It was a couple of weeks ago. I just crawled it the one time. It's funny though. The idea here was then to be able to do things like query suggestion. And so this, I haven't done enough searches on this little demo site to be able to use machine learning to do my query suggestion. So this is just based on key concepts that we extract during the indexing process. So there is a field in Coveo called concepts, and we populated it with what we think are important terms and phrases that we find in the pages that we've indexed. And you can use that field for query suggestion. So to me, this would be a good first step, relatively easy. I can get some good query suggestion going here. I've typed in the word life. Well, what am I looking for? Life expectancy, perhaps. A couple other things that I did. I built some filters and facets over here. I have to apologize, I couldn't find a lot of good metadata in many of your pages. So what I did was built a hierarchical facet based on the folders or the URIs of your various pages. If I hover over this, you can see here, this is retirement / pension / annuities / frequently asked questions. So I just said, well, let's limit this to the first 2 layers of that folder structure. But there is some interesting, valuable perhaps, structure here to these results. And it's an easy way to take advantage of the fact that your site is, I think, well structured from a URL point of view. Like, well, I'm looking for news. Let's drill down into news about life expectancy. So severe weather advice, perhaps. Let's try that. So just an example of what you might consider doing, whether it's a hierarchical facet like this or facet perhaps based on meta tags that you would use in your pages. I also put a couple tabs in here as well. I did notice that there was a section of your site called the Medical Encyclopedia. And I thought, oh, that would be interesting. Let's have a separate tab that only searches that encyclopedia. So that's, again, super simple. It's a 1-line piece of JavaScript code to create a new tab and to filter based on whatever we'd like to filter on. In this case, I'm filtering just on, again, the URL. So there's that, if you can see down at the very bottom of my screen, it says medical-encyclopedia. So I'm only returning results that are from that section of your website. And then I indexed also your YouTube channel. We have a connector for that. And maybe it's the sort of thing you also want to return on your site. So I thought I'd do that. But hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of what can be done. I think that first example that I had up on the screen here around life insurance and impact from smoking gives some interesting results. I did actually build a little rule into that query pipeline to say if the title contains FAQ or frequently asked question, let's push that up in the result list. So that's why you see a bunch of FAQs at the top. But I found it interesting to compare this result versus what's actually happening on your website today. So these are relevant. They contain, they contain these terms in the title, for example, which is a good guide that they're relevant. These are all rather old news articles, and to me, it would make sense perhaps to either have those news articles in a separate tab, or selectable through a filter or a facet. Say, am I looking for news, or am I looking for more information around policies and such, to help with the user experience and the relevance of the results. And again, things like that rule I mentioned about, where was that here? Not featured results, ranking expressions. I just defined this rule to say if the title includes FAQ, let's give that a nice big relevance boost. Again, you can try these sort of things out in a test query pipeline to see what kind of impact this has on user click-through and click rank and such. So I just wanted to show you a couple little examples like that with some of your own data to hopefully drive some ideas around what you might want to achieve, either in a step-by-step approach or if you're looking to jump forward multiple levels in that maturity model. Any thoughts or questions on that?
No questions. It's just interesting to see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Brainstorm question from me.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. A brainstorm question from me was, besides the online data that we have also a lot of customers that are calling in with all kind of queries and questions, and there is also data from that side. Is it possible to do something with that that would increase the relevance and again making us jump a few ranks as we just been discussing?
Can you dig a little into what you mean by that data? What sort of information is it? Is it sort
well,
of
we have one is, well, chats, of course, which is online questions that we get and that we answer, but also you know, direct calls to our call center with all kind of questions and that we can monitor, and that can help us to understand the type of questions they're calling us for, and therefore we could, you know, use that to improve online information.
Yeah, and that's being logged in Salesforce, is it, or a different database, or? It's being stored in some sort of CRM or content repository.
I'm not sure what kind of NDA we have to be able to share this.
Not a problem. Okay, no need to get into the details.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's an interesting question. Quite often what we'll see is that an organization will use that content, or not content management, CRM information in order to create best practices articles, you know, knowledge articles, and so on, with the answer to the common answer to the question, and we would then typically index that information and published based on the experiences of your support organization. There are certainly other cases, and I think I showed you that on both the Adobe site and the Adobe site, where we're indexing the forums or threads or whatever, where people are asking and answering questions. And I think people really like that. I think customers and end users really like that. You know, you may want to decide how much moderation, and this is kind of outside of the scope of Coveo, how much moderation you're doing on that site. And you know, Coveo can do quite a lot, as you saw, I think, with regard to how to return those results, you know, boosting the ones with recommended answers, perhaps, depending on what kind of structure your forums have. So yeah, I mean, I personally, I think there's real value to having that kind of content as part of the search experience, the full user experience, really.
I think it would be good for us to understand all the connectors you have, or the native ones at least, so we can actually map out how Coveo can be integrated with different platforms.
Yep. This is just in my little environment. I don't have access to every single source type that's out there, but this is a list of the general ones. A few of them are pretty multi-purpose. There's a push API. So if you have a really custom environment, we can use our API to index that. Similarly, files and databases that happen to be on premises, we can index those. We also have a couple of our professional services team, again, Eric's team, have some other tools that they will use, like a REST API connector. So if you're trying to connect to an application that has a REST-based API, we can do that.
I have a question based on the connectors that you have. For videos, we have started using something called as Brightcove, and they would be hosted on AEM, but not on AEM, but they would embed the Brightcove code on it. Would we be able to index that as well?
Most often what we've done with Brightcove is either to index the metadata that's pushed into AEM and the reference, like the URL that points back to the actual digital asset, if you will. Or in some cases we've pointed directly at Brightcove, but used either our sitemap connector or web crawler connector to be able to index the data that's actually stored in Brightcove.
Okay.
Which is why we don't really have. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just about to say, just to make you aware, is that you already have access to about 15 plus different types of connectors as part of the license purchased.
Brilliant. That's good news. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I am going to have to drop in just a minute or two. I do have another meeting at the top of the hour. So if there are any sort of last thoughts, of course, happy to follow up afterwards via email or what have you.
Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, I'll ask.
I think we can quickly do a roundtable. Simon, do you have anything to ask? Stuart, anything? Nope. Nodding their head. Lewis, you can go.
Okay. I think during the demo or during the presentation, you touched on self-service as an area which you guys can help with. So I'm particularly interested in, say, if a customer wants to contact us about a problem, they type the query string into a box, and we would recommend a couple of results, which may answer the customer's question without them having to go call us or email us. So you have a solution that can support that type
Absolutely.
of
That's Paul's bringing up. And this, I showed you the use case of SolarWinds as an example. That's exactly what happens there. And what you describe is case deflection, basically. So you want customers to find their own solution through self-service capabilities. And we have a number of different customers where we're helping them with that. But are you showing Best Tech or Salesforce, Paul?
This is
Okay.
Best Tech right now.
Yeah.
Salesforce themselves use us very, very similarly on their site, but I have to go and log in and navigate through a bunch of structures. This is actually a demo environment, not a real customer, just to be clear. But the interesting thing to me here is, as you say, I'm filling in a form. I don't think I'm doing a search. I'm like, broken controller, I don't know. And I'm getting results returned to me, recommended results over here. Clearly, you're able to use various tools to tune the relevance and control what is being returned. But the really useful part of all this tends to be for our customers that we're logging. What am I filling in here? We're logging what do I click on, if anything, and we're logging, do I submit a case at the end of this process or not? And this helps our customers to understand, well, how well is my content working to address these questions? Where have I got gaps in the content that I'm putting out there? It helps them to create better new content and to understand what's working well and what's not, and to make sense of to get a bit of an idea of return on investment, not just for search, but for content.
Perfect.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. It's brought it up.
Yeah, great. I have a quick, not question, but a few things. If the first thing first, like if you could get the link to the recording so that we can share with the people who couldn't attend. The second thing was, Henry, you mentioned around what comes with the like connectors that come with the package. I think people on the call, we all are not aware of what we get with Coveo as a solution. So it'd be good if we could get a brief summary of what's included in our services so that we can try and understand a bit more. And also we'll have this recording, but also if you have any documentation around the best features that you could share as a read through, or just links or useful links that we should have to hand while thinking about Coveo as a search solution that you would recommend is worth giving a read, that would be really useful as well. So these were my top 3 things. And another question was, not as big a session as this, but if we feel that we have, once we agree how we're progressing with search, can we set this up, or when you're including something new in your feature sets for Coveo, would there be a possibility at least once in every 6 months to just touch base so that we know what new functionality you're building in as part of the search toolkit, so that all the product community at Aviva could be aware of?
Let me quickly cover the first 3. I mean, that's okay. I mean, I'll get you the file. I'll get you sort of a snapshot of what the current license entails. Obviously, if you connect with Steve Amos, he'll be able to share as well. But it might be even easier for me to just to do that. And in terms of getting you some links, I think we can share our online help, which for the most part shares that. Your latter question, I'm not sure if we have a mechanism for that. I mean, typically we have a what we call a customer success manager who's allocated to a client, and that person is talking on a frequent basis with you. Now, I do know that you have a standard. That means there's no additional hours, so that is I'll need to, let me rephrase. I'll need to look into that. But if you run the customer success program, then that's part of his or her role to feed you with that. Otherwise, it's public information. You can pull from our forums, so to speak, or our community website.
Okay. Fair enough. So these sessions are just, this was just done as part of the overall package that you provide, but this is not something that you offer on an ongoing basis. Is that right?
Not really, because it becomes,
Yeah.
you know, not manageable per se.
Yeah,
Unless we,
agreed.
yeah.
Agreed. That's absolutely fine. I think that's for us to take offline and liaise with Sarah as to how we engage.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. I mean, just on a point. I mean, if you opt for a premium standard customer success plan, you know, obviously there's some cost involved in that. Then obviously that comes with a whole lot more. You know, things like best practices, your reviewing analytics help you to improve on the maturity matrix, and that's on top of implementation services, basically. Because implementation services is like it's a start and a finish of a project, right? But this program is on an ongoing basis.
Yeah. Okay. And I think the last thing was, I think Simon mentioned about analytics and how we use the analytics dashboard. We couldn't cover a lot of, like, we couldn't go into detail, but it'll be just good to get, again, when you send the links as to how the dashboard is set up and what kind of reports are generated. It'll just be good to have a read through those. So that'll be really useful.
There are a couple of online videos, by the way, that that can help you walk through that as well, in addition to the documentation and such. Often a great place to get started, but you know, many times it is useful to get somebody like Eric, for example, or a CSM involved to understand your requirements. But share with you the videos and the documentation.
What I also highly recommend, and again, it hasn't been consumed as of yet, is there's a training package which includes virtual class training, and as part of the total package purchased by Aviva. But thus far, I need to check, but to my knowledge, no one has leveraged that. So, you know.
Okay, that is good to know.
Yeah.
I think it'll be just because none of us on the call have been party to the contractuals previously, so that's why I was trying to understand as to what comes as part of the package would be good to know, so that we can leverage the light information, and if we don't have something, we can then agree on an engagement plan with you guys.
Got it. Makes sense. Excellent. No further questions or comments? Was this, or just like ask you a little bit of feedback, was this what you expected? Hope to get out of this?
Yeah, I think for me it was really useful.
Okay.
And it was a really good session so that we could see it happening live. So it was good. I think it covered most of the things that we wanted to know at a very high level, which is great.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, same for me as well. So I think you covered, ticked a lot of the boxes that I mentioned at the beginning.
Okay.
Thanks for that.
Great. Thank you for the feedback. Well, thank you all. Have a good evening, and then I'll circle back with you, Sneha, on some of the action items.
Perfect. That'd be brilliant. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Paul.
Take care.
Paul.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure.